All right, let's look at the next counter deployment from the front. The scenario is the same. You know, you're sitting here waiting for your cab at night, somebody comes up and he pulls up his hoodie so he can get access to the weapon so that he can pull it out now rob you. If you're able to stop this earlier, it's better. Now we looked at the two-handed one. Another option for exactly the same scenario is the one-handed one. This one I think is older. It goes back to, like I say, classical jiu-jitsu. It probably evolved from sword work. I've learned very similar counter-deployment techniques in Filipino sword work, some very old systems that actually dealt with when a person's trying to draw his weapon. Now, the reason I'm going to use one hand is because I can use my second hand for something else. So here's what I mean. As he draws, I'm going to put my weight on it this way with one hand. So if you're a peace officer, for example, and you're carrying your own sidearm, this is ideal for that situation because you're able to counter-deploy while deploying your own sidearm. And it's good because you're using your weak side arm to step forward as he draws from the front there. This hand is doing exactly the same thing that this hand was doing in the first technique. The difference is it's my other hand, so I'm getting as close to his thumb here as possible. I'm gripping like this. And as you can see, many handguns have a spur here. If my hand fits under that spur, it's pretty difficult for him to pull that out. I just got to keep my weight on it. Now, in a lot of modern Israeli systems, they start teaching to hit the guy. That may or may not be a bad idea, but you can't rely on this. Remember, statistically, I can hit this guy 5, 6, 7, 8 times. If he weighs much more than me, nothing's going to happen. Significant's going to happen. That's a statistical fact. We can't ignore that. But if I'm carrying my own sidearm, then this gives me the opportunity. And for civilian use, you may not be carrying a sidearm, but you may have edge weapon, even a pen or a pencil. So that is probably where the secondary approach evolved from, was to allow you to stop his deployment while deploying your own. And again, the concepts are the same. I need to get my hand on here, I need to put my weight on it. Okay? Everything else is the same. Bang, bang. Now the question becomes, okay, what if I don't have a sidearm? I want to apply both hands, and we're back into the classic wrist lock, armpit lock scenario. That's one way to do it, assuming that you know those techniques well. All right? So again, if I'm here, I can get two hands on it, and if he's really fighting to get it up, which can happen because I don't have elbow control like the first one, if he knows what he's doing, he's going to twist it, and it's going to have to come out. Okay, again, I've got this one, or I've got this one, and they all try to fit together conceptually. Okay? Another option, of course, is once I'm here, of course, I can start hitting the guy, and then whenever you see this demonstrated, it just stops after I hit the guy a few times. Realistically, we have to understand that fighting in the real world, especially if I'm a 170-pound man like I am, punching somebody with my bare fist, and he's 200, 230, whatever, I'm not likely to take this person out. We have to accept that reality that most people, most of the time, cannot take people out with hand strikes. All right, and you're going to end up busting your hand. The elbow's a better choice, okay? So at some point as he's pulling out, the next phase is, instead of working the wrist lock here, I go to the gun itself. All right, so we're kind of mixing the old school and the new school, which was fairly common in later old school training. From here, I had the same options. This is pretty good. I can continue the wrist lock, which actually may work better because the gun acts as a lever. Or you can simply work against his thumb and take it out. And now, if you're, even with the classic one, didn't feel good to eat that spur. Now with this big chunk of metal, if you want to hit somebody, hit the person with a gun. All right, do not decide that suddenly you're Wyatt Earp and you know what to do, and you're going to stand here and realize that it's not going off. Why is that? He's a foot away from you. Now he may run away, or he may jump on you and take the gun back. Okay, so there's a couple of options from the older school version. He pulls up his hood. Jesus! Okay, now here, I instinctively grab with two hands. But the idea is the same, because I may not have a sidearm, so I go here, boom, I push that baby down. From here, if he's really pulling it out, I'm going to slide up and grab the weapon. You're probably better off this way, again, if we're dealing with a long slide. All right, if it's a short, you know, like a 380 auto or something, or 22, it may only be this long. I may not be able to grab it. You could do it this way, but the leverage isn't as good with my elbow out. When I grab it this way, you can see how my elbow is. I have a lot better leverage. From here, I can crank it right out of his thumb, or I can do a hybrid where I'm both doing the wrist lock and taking it out. Okay, if something goes wrong here, he starts pushing into me, he's very strong, I got the option to go back to here and again to take it out. Okay, so there's counter deployment with one hand. Now the good thing about this, if you're very early on that, sometimes that will come right off. His hand may get knocked right off, and if it's in his pants, it won't fall off. It won't. But you have to be, just factor this into your training because it's close to a second hand. So if I do this, just remember to get there before he does, because he's got a second hand. It's a more awkward draw for him at this angle. And now again, you've got the weapon. If you know how to operate it, maybe he'll be intimidated, but you know, maybe he knows that the slide hasn't been racked and you don't. So you don't even know if this would fire, even if you know where the safety is and all the other considerations. So to make life simpler, he will know that you've hit him with a 5-pound chunk of steel, which is what a firearm is. And no, with modern firearms and all their safety devices, there's very little chance that there's going to be an accidental discharge from impact. Okay, remember that they're steel, they're thick-walled steel. They're designed for little explosions to go off, and they're very rugged, and it's difficult for them to accidentally go off, particularly if the hammer's down. You know, the impact would have to force the hammer out and all the way down, or the pin's moving around there somehow. Just be assured it's difficult to get an accidental discharge through impact. Okay, so again, be aware that sometimes if you see his hand coming, you get there first, it may get peeled off. Make sure you get a hold of that before he does. And now we're back in the same scenario. From this position here, maybe I can, you know, start adding the other aspects. And look again that I'm in base. If he starts struggling, even if I have a gun in my hand, my feet are, boom, maybe I hit the ground, maybe he's on top of me, now we're in a struggle for a firearm. Whoever's strongest is going to point at the other person. All right, we have to be careful with that. Okay, so to reiterate, this approach probably evolved from the idea of having your own weapon. In the old days, it would have been a sword, but modern, you know, police, military, people who have carry permits in the civilian world, when he goes for his, I can both counter his deployment and I can deploy my own. That's a very good option, whether you want to do 2 hands or 1. That's where that approach evolves from.